Hello and welcome to the final transfer show of the winter window. I'm Trev Downey, joined of course by Mr. Dave Davis to discuss the state of play with regard to Liverpool. And we're actually going to keep it almost entirely, if not actually entirely, to Liverpool on this show, because really on deadline day, that's all people are going to want to be listening to. We have news of a big signing. We have news of one that got away. We have 23 minutes remaining for something to happen. We don't think it will. So we have a few other stories as well to fill out our hour and have plenty to hopefully hook you in terms of interest. Dave, before we start with our big story, we might as well address the elephant in the room, because it's where we're going to finish as well, if we're being honest, which is that we've all been saying it was very much incumbent upon the powers that be to get at least a body, a plug and play first team ready option into the mix, given the status of the season, given where we are in the table, given the amount of rivalry we currently have for Champions League positions, the form of those clubs as they continue through the season, and the state of play we have in terms of constant sick notes in our squad. So we were very much, I think, if not optimistic, then sort of, well, they can't not do it, surely. And then there were all the stories that we were going to do it. And yet, Dave, it seems as if this window is going to close with another shit show in terms of what have you done for me lately? I know we've got one for the long distance, but let's talk about this season. Let's not write this season off. And it feels a little bit like we're taking a punt again.
It reminds me of the famous words of Michael E. Jagger of the Rolling Stones Limited, who once said, Trev, I think, or repeatedly said, but I try, and I try, and I try, and I try, but we can't get no just defenders. It shouldn't be this complicated, should it? It's lastminute.com style bookings as well. I mean, literally, all that's missing in the tail of our transfer window is last-minute failures and Jurgen Klopp popping up going, you should have gone with Trivago or something like that. That's how bad it has been at the end. But trying to be as objective, straight down the line as possible, let's be, try and be factual with this. They tried to get Gayans. They knew they were one short for the start of the season. They wanted at least one more defender because they didn't get Gay. So you thought, as January approached, they'll rectify that. Since then, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Conor Bradley out for the season, Giovanni Leone out for the season, Joe Gomez, as much as we love him, being Joe Gomez, basically. Jeremy Frimpong now up to 4 muscle injuries. So that's 4. I mean, Ibu playing this often is a nice, pleasant surprise, I think, as well at the same time. But when you've got question marks over a few, you've got 4 real concerns there, and you do not bring in a single defender before the deadline when your Champions League qualification, never mind a title charge, which we thought it could be at the start of the season, Champions League qualification is on the brink. We used the phrase a few times this window, Trev. It'd be a dereliction of duty. And I'm getting the feeling that in 90 minutes, there's not going to be soldiers arriving at the scene, put it that way.
Yeah, and I think that's very difficult for people to stomach, especially those of us who don't want to do the absolute blind blinkers, just back the team stuff that an awful lot of people seem to use as their default setting these days. It's almost as if it's not okay to be frustrated that Liverpool are not in the shake-up for the league title when Liverpool should be in the shake-up for the league title. That's absolutely the case. And the fact that we're so far off it, never mind actually being in the running for the title, we're actually now at the moment out of the loop for Champions League. Yeah. And that's just not acceptable in any way, shape or form. And like I said to you before, if you want to be okay with that and just back the team and back the manager and just have a nice day out, that's cool. I'm that's cool. But if you're going to criticize other people for being pissed off about it, that is loser talk. That's what that is. And I'll put it right up to you and say that to your face. And I have said it to people's faces in my day-to-day life, because I can't get on board with that. It just incredibly narrow focus and just ambition free. The idea that we haven't done anything, Dave, in this window, and like you say, now we're down to 17 minutes, 16 minutes, or whatever it is, 18, sorry. The fact that we haven't done anything is quite hard to stomach. And I refuse to believe, just before we start with all the good news in a second, I refuse to believe that there wasn't another option apart from the lad at Sunderland. We'll get to that and how that fell apart, because we do want to start with the good news for you. But how can there only be one option? This is our boffins, our brainiacs, our guys who have data spreadsheets on everyone in the world. You tell me there wasn't a second go-to?
I think this is more what we struggle with as well, that they left it too late for Gay last summer, and obviously they got a bit of criticism for that. Quite rightly, you could argue about Steve Parish going to his, gym class or CrossFit or whatever it was, but ultimately, they didn't get stuff done. This window, you knew how threadbare we were. You knew it got worse in January. And you kind of thought, like, maybe are they just in a madness and thinking that they've got enough? And we'd heard the reports, hadn't we? No, we've got enough. We've got people that can play different positions. But obviously it became clear, Trev, that they didn't really believe that. Hence the Geertruida move and all this. And yeah, from like everyone has been doing, digging around today, this is more important to say Liverpool have looked at multiple options, and they've been still even trying for right backs as we've had today. So that tells you they don't quite think it's enough. But these brainiacs, whatever you want to call them, have left it too late. What happened to being the smartest guys in the room, eh?
Whatever happened to it? I like that one from Filet there. There can only be one, like Highlander. We're reduced to just the one option for transfers. I got to put this on the screen. You're not going to like it. You're not going to like it. You're getting trolled. Sam's having a pop ahead of our next story, and it is our big story, and everybody knows this one, but you will have the details to fill in for people around the deal. Jeremy Jacquet will be a Liverpool player in the summer, much to the excitement of an awful lot of people. I won't lie and say that I have enough of a sample size of watching him to be excited about it. I don't. I go by the analysis of people I trust who are very high on this kid. I was watching a compilation of his bits there today, and I was kind of a little bit alarmed by how much he was on the ground in most of the clips. But anyway, that's beside the point. I'm sure we've done our homework and we have a very good player in our hands. Talk us through the development of this, because if we're being honest, it was one of those ones that felt like, it was one of the many names that we've been in for, that we seem to be interested in, because Liverpool are going to be interested in good young talent across the continent. But there was nothing tangible about it. And in fact, there were very strong links from a certain Sky journalist to other clubs. All of a sudden, it's over the line for the Reds. It's quite dramatic, wasn't it, really? Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's even great that this transfer cost the soul of Carve Solahol at Sky as well. Just adds to the mix. And just on that comment, I will address it. Sam Maguire sources, exceptional. Sam Maguire personality, disgraceful. So we'll leave it at that in terms of those two elements. But
I don't agree, Sam.
Well, for Jacquet, I mean, this is a real coup. We're almost waiting for the copium, aren't we? This to be announced and come out. But when you talk about this kid, me and Bart's have looked at him on transfer market metrics a few times and got footage, been chasing it. The ceiling does feel incredibly high for this kid. There is a lot to be excited about when we've covered him. And people might all know, put it on the screen there, Jules Lawrence, well known for his, show with Gab Marcotti, well known around European football. There's him tweeted as well. I can't stress enough what a superb signing Jeremy Jacquet will be for Liverpool. A special talent, everything to become one of the best defenders in the world. Paris born and bred too, which makes him even more special. Lot to like about this kid, Trev, as well. Defensive pace as well, an aerial beast. I think that the big thing that surprised me is the way it's being reported, doing digging on this, because everyone's kind of made it like Chelsea have done the work and we've done, like a 11th hour hijack type of job, which isn't quite how we have it, having done the digging. That Liverpool have liked this kid for a while. We said scouts to Rennes before. They built that relationship. Richard Hughes has done a lot of work. And One Football, who is reps, have been to AXA at times as well. So Liverpool have just nicely laid the groundwork for this. What I would actually say a little bit from what we've told is, think a little bit of Luis Diaz, and everyone's like thinking, why are you talking about Luis Diaz? Do you remember when Spurs agreed a deal and we nipped in and just matched it and stole the player, basically? What we've done in this scenario is just waited for Chelsea to agree a deal with his people, matched it, and put the better proposition to him, haven't we, in terms of this is the best place to come, this is where you'll get development, more first-team football. You don't want to be one of the 874 centre-backs that are messing around and on loan in League Two for a year. So they've done a lot of work on this. That's really important to say. But I don't want to take the shine off this, because you should almost treat this a bit separately. I am very excited about this deal. I like the fact we've got it done. It still just comes back to the fact that we can get these deals done, can't we? We can pick Chelsea and other big clubs, as we've done still, and do it well. Just do more and do some now. But they're not going to do it in 12 minutes, eh?
I guess not. To dwell a little bit more on this particular deal, just remind us a little bit. You and Bart have talked this kid up and run the numbers on him, and maybe give people a little bit of a feel for why we should be excited. I see a kid who's young, who is rated clearly, but who's not playing at a big-time club, and who is not a full international yet. And these are all boxes that people would imagine you're going to be ticking when you're spending huge amounts of money like we are spending on this kid. That's one thing. And the other thing is, you get little sort of echoes of the Lenny Yoro thing, don't you, with this one too, to an extent. Just talk us through why it is people should be getting a little bit giddy about this one, and why.
I think one of the first things to say is, you look at his age, so you're right, it's thinking, he's under 21, like, what's this going to mean? But you're talking about an under 21-year-old centre-back that's posting aerial numbers at the moment, not far off VVD. That's what we're talking about, an absolute aerial beast. And in the Premier League, that is never going to hurt to start with, is it? That's one of the predominant things you need, that physicality. Big, strong, quick. It's almost I don't know how you put it, a slightly unusual gait, but very quick across the ground. And what he does very well is he defends spaces down the right, often a little bit like Ibu had to do when a certain right back just went wandering on his own and doing things. So there's real qualities there. I think people will look and go, what's he like? Because we've got a progressive issue at the back. He is decent when you look at his numbers as well from a progressive point of view. Not VVD, of course, by any means, but if it's going to be a foil for VVD, there's real potential. If we were to move to a back three as well, Trev, he's a brilliant candidate for that at the same time as well. I think that there's a reason why we were in, Chelsea were in, United had a look, Bayern had a go as well, Real Madrid had a look. All the big-time players pretty much have been in and had a look. So I don't want to play this down. When we've looked at players, and me and Bart's have run different centre-backs, from a young centre-half perspective, this kid was right up there as kind of the one, if you know what I mean. There's others that are more senior, because people will say, what about Schlotterbeck and other names? But we're talking young centre-halves here. Liverpool clearly feel that the potential of this kid is so high. Forget any worrying about, like Gay or moving for that just now or other deals. Like, they really think this kid is special. That's why they've done so much groundwork on him. You never know with young centre-backs. There is always a risk, isn't there, as to what they can develop. But we either trust the nerds or we don't, I suppose, a little bit, you could say.
Do we know what stage the deal is at in terms of, last I heard, he was en route to do a medical? Has that transpired as yet? Do we know? Or
we are waiting confirmation. We know he's arrived. He arrived at the AXA a while ago. So I don't know how they're going to do this. I think when we miss out at people and that window shuts in 8 minutes, it wouldn't surprise you just to get a few Mercedes veto shots, would it? And Jacquet with a big thumbs up on the aeroplane and doing that and his Liverpool training kit, like hit the copium buttons type of thing because the window's fallen flat. So we are expecting something tonight, but we're not 100% certain yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool just teased out a few things later on to send everyone to bed happy.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised. That would seem to be the thing that would make sense in the context of not doing anything else, for sure. Let's move on to the one that got away, the last-minute deal that didn't get done. It seemed to make a whole pile of sense for us to get. Apparently, you're supposed to pronounce it Geertruida, but anyway, whatever way you want to say it, over the line, because he was someone that Arne Slot had great belief in, had been previously his club captain, is capable of playing right back and centre back, and looked like he could be exactly the kind of guy that we were describing at the start of the show, the kind of plug and play, squad ready, first team option. And it looked as if it was barreling along quite nicely until it wasn't. And when you reveal to us in a few minutes the reason why it didn't get over the line, all it does is make you scream, why was it left until now? Because the reason it didn't get over the line is something that could have been remedied, I think, with more time.
Yeah, I mean, this was looking peachy keen, wasn't it, on Sunday when the kind of Romano dropped it and you thought, Brill, this is going to get done. And it was never an inspiring signing, but you saw it, didn't you? Because you thought, yeah, Slot knows him. He can play right back, centre back, can cover DM in a push as well. That's where he's been playing for Sunderland in the Premier League. So it made a lot of sense, especially with being a loan for, what was it, 3 or 4 million. You thought, yeah, I can get behind this. And as Paul Joyce and others tweeted, Liverpool already proceed with the deal for him, and the player wanted the move. And it's important to say that. In fact, Lewis Steele was on Media Matters and said earlier that he'd said his goodbyes at Sunderland and even bought like flowers for certain, ladies who work there and all that type of thing. But Sunderland would just not sanction the exit. It's almost one of those, and we used this analogy last summer. Do you remember when we almost said as part of a house chain where any link can fall through and it falls flat? So we've got us, we've got Sunderland, and we've got Red Bull Leipzig. And it's almost just too much to do because Sunderland were like, we understand it, it's a great opportunity, but we need another body in and probably a midfielder because that's where we've been playing him largely when we, use him. So let us get someone in, and then that's the first kink that could go wrong, isn't it? Then Sunderland also say, well, don't forget, we'll do you a bit of a favour here, but we want a little bit of compo. So, okay, that seemed reasonable. That seemed agreeable. Almost like a loan fee then, wasn't it? You can rationalise that. Then also doing a bit of digging, Red Bull Leipzig were kind of, yeah, we're okay with this. And, we're not forced. However, if we're going to do this for you, Liverpool, we want an obligation clause in there as well. Which Liverpool were like, no, we'll do an option because you never know, he might fly on his low, mighty type of thing. So, that makes sense. But it then almost becomes a, can you get it done? And even if Sunderland could have got a midfielder in, it then becomes, well, who blinks first out of Red Bull Leipzig and Liverpool in terms of the deal and how late does it go and that type of scenario. So, and then, I mean, Lewis even said, and this is true, we did some digging, Liverpool looked at many other options as well. It wasn't just this player, Geertruida, however it's pronounced, and a few that, listen, you'll get thousands of names because it's transfer deadline day. Of course, people will just throw out random links, but trying to get things stood up, as you know, we did today, Trev. Monaco, we had real conversations with Monaco about 2 of their players, Teze, I think it's pronounced, and even Vanderson, revisiting our homework there potentially for the summer. But, funnily enough, Monaco are in a strong position, so they can ask stupid money at the end of the window, can't they? And they've got other deals to do at the same time. So it's not got done. Again, we've just left it too late. And again, there's got to be a few criticism, even of the people in charge of recruitment, haven't there? At the end of the day,
I'm curious about a few things, and I think somebody brought it up in. I think Mr. 365 Boy brought it up in the chat there. There's one or two, like we have our usual great contributors. There's one or two geniuses in tonight. Fair play to them. But Mr. 365 Boy says, why are we trying to bring in someone that Slot would want to work with if Slot is not here for the long term? And that's an interesting one that did cross my mind, to be honest. I want to just put this out there because we could be seen as hammering them. You mentioned the potential deals with Monaco. We only heard about the Geertruida thing when we heard about it, and it seemed quite late in the window. Is it possible that, is it actually probably likely that this was going on for the duration of the window? Somebody else saying it should have been an instantly kicked into thing the minute that Conor Bradley got crocked. Is it possible that that behind the scenes we have been doing these things and they only broke in recent days, and then it looks like, okay, it fell on its arse at the last minute? I'm trying to not look as if we're trying to stitch these guys up too badly.
Liverpool, especially in recent times, have been masters of getting a deal pretty much there or done quietly. There's proof of that, isn't there? You look to last summer where Florian Wirtz and family flew in and it only came out once everyone thought he was going to be off to Real Madrid or City, and all of a sudden we popped up, didn't we? And, all this talk of we've done the groundwork. You also had in that same summer talk of, well, as it came out, Liverpool even did checks on Turkey and went to see the player and his entourage, didn't they? So they're very, very good, like this one as well, of keeping things under wraps. They are really good at that. But even if they've done that, Trev, say you want to give them the absolute benefit of the doubt in this situation, why still just do that all the way till the end? Why not pivot if you're struggling with it and thinking like this Sunderland chain, this Red Bull train's a bit awkward? I think a little bit of what you said around Geertruida, I think this is a loan, so it doesn't really reflect too much on Slot. I think this is one probably Slot said, I know this guy, I can work with him, it can work, rather than anything that's an endorsement of Slot's future at all. But trying not to hammer them, but at the end of the day, football's about results, isn't it? We talk about results on the field, so you've got to talk about results on the pitch. And whether they were looking at other options, which it seems they were, whether they've thrown some difficulties up, they're not going to get it done, are they? Simple as that.
And hard luck stories are of no interest to me anyway. I just, in the interest of balance, I was just trying to see if we could spin it in semi-positive way, but I agree with you, and I think you're right about the loan thing. I imagine if Geertruida was someone that the club wanted long term, they'd have paid the or they'd have agreed to the condition to buy. So I think that's very, very true indeed. In terms of moving on then to our next story, we have a couple of other very interesting scenarios going on. We've talked a lot about Ibou Konaté, who made a lovely return to the team there and probably put in his performance of the season by quite a distance on the night. Looked quite imperious and very much, part of the furniture in a way that we'd all love to see him continue to be. I think I heard you say on your show that you'd love to see Ibou just become our senior defender for the next 5, 6, 7 years, or however long he has in his tank. And I think most of us would agree with you. And maybe if we could get someone who's sort of a dominant presence in the air, like Jacquet, or maybe Leone comes good, who knows what the new partnership might look like. However, the fact that Jacquet has been done and so much money has been spent on him is now making people wonder about the Ibou Konaté situation. We are where we are with that. There's no new news. However, Dom Szoboszlai has spoken on his contract situation. I read these quotes, Dave. I don't know if you have them to hand. I read them, and I have them here if you want me to read them back. But I thought it was pretty hopeful overall. I thought what he said was general football speak about, you never know in football type attitude that you get all the time. But he did pretty much emphasize at least a couple of times that he was happy and wanted to stay. Very much the same sounds as we were hearing from Virgil and Mo back in the day.
Yeah, it's carefully phrased. It seems, I don't want to say calculated because that makes him sound Machiavellian almost, but I think it's been pointed out by a few journalists that Dominic Szoboszlai's hardly said any words or, stopped in the mix zone or given many interviews in his 3 years or nearly 3 years at the football club. Yet in the last 6 weeks or so, he's been regularly stopping in the mix zone and talking about, leadership and certain elements and other things. And Lewis even mentioned it on Media Matters. It's been not in a bad way, but just noted and been great for that, great for the press pack, hasn't it? And the patch journos. But the way he's phrasing it, isn't it, that it's not in my hands. It's kind of not a challenge to Liverpool, but say, if you make me the right offer and give me the right deal and the right package overall, I'll stay. Don't you worry about that. I'm happy. But it's kind of almost like a conditional offer, isn't it? It has that feeling. And there is a lot of, again, suspicion's too strong, but belief that maybe he is, and understandably, arguing for a leadership role. And of course, Virgil van Dijk only has a few years, or will have a year left to go in the summer, doesn't he? So who's going to take over the armband? A lot of the existing leadership group are probably expected to be gone within a year or 2 years as well. So there is a feeling that he's doing that a little bit. But what's also notable is, as a few people have mentioned when we've been digging, there ain't no chance Dominic Szoboszlai's doing anything before he knows if Liverpool have got Champions League football. Because if we don't, how many of the big teams are going to come calling, or Liverpool's so-called European rivals and that type of thing? So, yeah, this has no feeling of getting done anytime quick. But it is important to say, and we'll come on to another midfielder as well, this is one that Liverpool have jumped to the top of the pile, if you know what I mean, a little bit, in terms of the deals they're trying to get done and ramp things up. And Dominic Szoboszlai is talking about it. So there's hopeful noises, but there's just a few things to watch at the same time.
I did like the phrasing of, I'm doing my job on the pitch. We will see in the future. It's always there and back and there. Let's see what happens. Hopefully everyone will be happy in the end. And then he finishes off with, do I like it here? Of course. Of course, he says, I like the city. I like the club. I like playing with these guys. I love Anfield. I love the fans. Let's see what the future holds. There we go with the, football speak. He says, it's not on me, but I would love to stay. We will see. So, I mean, look, you can't ask for a whole lot more from the kid. I think you're dead right. It's up to him to maximize his position in terms of getting a reward from the club for his efforts. Nobody could fault him for that. Too many people were too harsh, I thought, on Virgil and Mo for doing exactly that. You get one go round as a professional footballer. Yeah. So you're right. Nothing will happen, I would imagine, or will be contingent upon probably him knowing who is going to be the gaffer next season and whether or not we're going to be playing top tier European football. Now, you did mention another midfield story. Do you want to lead us into that one before we move to Harvey Elliott, or is Harvey Elliott where you want to go next?
No, I think it is right to mention the other midfielder, because alarming is maybe too strong, but there's a few concerns now around the Curtis Jones situation. How many times have we said on this transfer show, like, people, our info is that there's obviously, with 18 months, a year left to go in the summer, that they're miles apart and they actually broke off talks at one stage. We'd said that repeatedly. Now it's interesting that Paul Joyce, about less than a week ago, Trev, says, Tottenham are interested to keep an eye on that one. And then Inter have also come into the mix in a few days. And I mean, the Inter Milan side fully are briefing and believing that Curtis Jones wanted to go and do that deal. And look at Fratese's agent even a bit earlier saying Inter did not get Curtis Jones from Liverpool, so Fratese won't be joining Nottingham Forest. Inter don't want him to leave now. But all the Inter side are pretty adamant that, he wanted that. And you just wonder a little bit as well now, don't you? Because there'll be 12 months left to go in the summer anyway. They're pushing to get Szoboszlai done. we know they've had talks with Grav at the same time as well. So that's almost sending that message to Curtis that you're not our priority renewal either, even though Szoboszlai's got a year more and so's Gravenberch than you on the deal. Also, I think you're just seeing it a little bit at the moment. And this doesn't mean it's directly linked. A lot of people are talking about Curtis Jones and Arne Slot. But Curtis Jones seems back to being the fourth choice midfielder, doesn't he, again, realistically at the moment as well. And this is the contract where he's 25 now. He's not a kid. My worry is the way people talk about Curtis Jones. Do you remember how United fans used to go like, oh, he's got real potential, Jesse Lingard. Like, he's freaking 29, for God's sake. Like, do you know, you could just keep in that thing. Like, he's 25. This is probably the big contract of his career as well. And it feels like if he's going to stay and commit to Liverpool and push on or move on, it's now or never a little bit. So, yeah, just with this, there's a few uneasy signs about the stories that are coming out. And even as one journalist put it to us, don't be surprised if Liverpool phrase it a certain way or layer stories in a certain way, because if they want to move Curtis Jones on to maybe get another midfielder in at the same time, there's a way you can play it out in public, can't you? So there's that. So that's not a good contract story. And then the other bit we got today as well, because with Jacquet coming, a lot of us have gone, surely that means Ibu's off. But just a bit of an update as we've got to that. PSG have made him an enormous offer, apparently, and there's a real suspicion across the French journos or the bits that we can get that he will end up at PSG if he doesn't do a renewal with us. So leaning more towards a departure there.
The midfield thing is very interesting because if you look at, I think you're dead right, and the manager's comments in his most latest press conference was very revealing, where he was talking about wanting to play with a settled team and using the same players to reproduce the same connections and interaction between the players. Yeah, and that would very much mean that it's Mac and it's Dom when he's available to be in midfield, and it's Grav, and then if we're going to play Florian Wirtz as the 10, if we have to play Dom as the right back, you know. But he wants to use the same players, and you're right, Curtis Jones seems to have slipped back down the pecking order there. Whether that was justified or not, given McAllister's form before and since, who knows? I don't buy into too much into this argy-bargy between him and the manager, because nobody knows the truth of that, really. And, like, I mean, do these people not work? Do they not have workplace disputes on a regular basis themselves? It's a group of men working together. They're going to fall out. Like, so even if there is something to it, they're not that precious. They're like, you know, it's Twitter is, you know, social media in general is just so hysterical constantly about stupid things like little fallouts and arguments. But I do think it's very interesting because you've got Endo, who's likely to move on as well, and we are likely to hopefully approach someone like Wharton in the summer. I don't know if you want to touch on that as well. And like, he still seems to be very much the big target for us in the summer, doesn't he? I mean, I think that's fair to say. There's a lot of talk there, and there seems to be more than just rumor around the reported interest in Wharton, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We said it a few times, and you know, when you're checking and asking, that it does seem that for all the midfielders who've been linked with, and there's the certain ones we've mentioned as well, Adam Wharton does seem to be Liverpool's top target. And the only concern a little bit, because people will talk about the homegrown issue, is almost that, and I don't know, but it's just starting to build a little bit. Are Liverpool almost prepared to sacrifice Curtis Jones, despite the fact he's a Scouser and homegrown? Because if Adam Wharton comes in, well, that's one homegrown out, one in type of job. But I suppose my argument would be, Trev, why not have both? Wouldn't you want both in your squad if you're going to start winning trophies at that type of thing? So, yeah, there is a real unease about the way the Curtis Jones narrative is just starting to build in the wrong way.
I don't want to alarm anyone, but it has been mentioned in the chat a few times that Sky have yet to announce the Jeremy Jacquet deal is done and make it official. So, if you're inclined to be nervous about things, then it would appear you have just cause for being nervous. Remarkable stuff, really. So much for our PR blitz that we were expecting, Dave, unless it happens late here. It is kind of strange, isn't it, that it hasn't been announced as one of their, and now the window's closed, but let's look at business that's been done. Is it unusual, or is there still some sort of deal sheet crack that could go on for an hour or two that we should just relax about?
Yeah, you'd kind of hope that you would hear something soon, or a little bit of build into something. Yeah. I suppose you could also argue, well, if he's not coming right now and they're agreeing a deal for the summer, as long as that's locked in, I suppose a little bit as well, you could argue that. But yeah, so some sort of copium for our inhalers would be good about now, wouldn't it, eh?
Yeah. We do love the inhalers, let's be honest. Let's talk about Harvey Elliott, because again, that's one that's getting kicked around in our chat panel there. And it's taken on a confusing twist recently, in that all of a sudden he appears to be back in favour just when it looked as if himself and Aston Villa were going to part ways. I have no idea what's going on there. Dave, are you any clearer?
No, I think everyone's just a little bit confused by this, because I think a lot of journalists have mentioned it as well, expected something to get done where would Villa maybe agree a penalty clause and send him back, and, all these types of things, how would it work? But there was a report in the BBC today even that, Villa are very much expecting him to stay. And Unai Emery, as you said, has used him the last few games. But Unai Emery's also said, the plan has not changed at all with Harvey Elliott. But people are now noting that, do you remember it was 10 appearances to get to the obligation? And now he's at 6. Now he's at 7. So there is a worry that he's only got sort of 3 more to play with, or technically 2, you could argue, couldn't you, at the same time? So is he just going to be in almost football purgatory a little bit, just sat there doing nothing? But it's important there to note that a couple of the Athletic reporters have put it out there that it could well be possible that Villa and Liverpool have talks after the deadline's passed over the arrangement, as in, does an obligation become an option? Is the target raised? Something like that. So maybe this just kind of goes on a little bit. I think we almost all thought, well, hold on, they've got Douglas Luiz, do you remember, back on loan from Juventus, and Tammy Abraham. So they've fortified that squad a little bit there. So this will probably be the time when they give up on Elliott or send him back. But it is just a little bit uncertain now. It's just a little bit strange in the scenario. So I suppose we're all waiting to see, as the Athletic are billing, are these talks going to happen? What's going to unfold? Or, as BBC is saying, is Harvey Elliott going to stay with Aston Villa, play 2 more games the entire season, and absolutely no more because they don't want to trigger the obligation? Either way, Messi's probably the word for it, isn't it, in all honesty?
It sure is. I know there is a rumor of a player we're linked to, but maybe we might, I don't know, what do you think, get into the McConnell one now as well, just because he's another young midfielder who has returned to the club, because people will be wondering why we didn't connect the 2 of those. So maybe we might just mention James McConnell now, who had I'd say you could say fairly spectacularly unsuccessful loan spell at Ajax, which is unfortunate for the kid. A, because he's such a good player, and B, because you don't want to be wasting any period of your career, especially in these sort of formative years. He's come back to the club now. He's highly unlikely to be doing anything for us because he's come back, hasn't he, injured, I think.
Yeah, it's an odd one that I think when he came back, people thought, okay, we're going out on loan. There was a lot of championship clubs interested, but doing a bit of sort of rehabbing and getting himself fit. It's just interesting to see what will happen, because at the start of the summer, as we'd said, many moons ago, and the plan always seemed to be, Liverpool's aim was to almost ship out Endo. That was expected to happen, but Endo decided he wasn't going anywhere and was going to fight for his place. And if Endo had gone, the suspicion was, McConnell would have stayed, as like the backup midfielder, so to speak, with Tyler Morton going as well, and maybe played the Endo minutes. So I genuinely don't know what's going to happen a little bit with James McConnell. It's just been a bit of a disaster of a season, really, for him, hasn't it? It should have been one where he should have gone on loan to like a championship club and really done well, you'd have thought, kicked on to the next stage of his career. But it's just not going to happen. And yeah, who knows what his career unfolds, or if it's another loan next season as well. The only other bit we got on the youth side was Arne Slot talked about it in the press conference the other day. Stefan Bajcetic. Literally, there is a concern at Liverpool that injury might just claim a career, literally, Trev. That's the way they're talking about it. Every time he gets close and back now, he gets injured or he breaks down again or something happens that sets him back while he's just miles and miles away from it. But in the photos all the time, so you're a bit like, what's going on there? So Arne Slot was quite honest about that. But I mean, we're talking about a kid that's now had, I think it's 2 or 3 surgeries, hasn't he? Hasn't played for a long period, keeps breaking down. And it's a really sad one to say, but there's a real fear that they thought he got over it a little bit when he had that last Palmas loan and he seemed to do okay. And maybe he should have gone, but another surgery, injury breakdowns. Sad to say, but there's a real question mark about, as Liverpool people are saying, Stefan Bajcetic's long-term future in the game.
Yeah, you'd like to think that that's the case, all right, that there would be some hope for the kid, but it's when you were hearing what the way that Arne was phrasing it, it was kind of grim, because he seemed really downbeat about what the lad was going to be able to do, which is a shame. Let's continue. We had a link, didn't we, with another young up-and-coming midfielder, Dutch midfielder, of course, Kees Smit. Talk to us about him. And I know we're going to have to cycle back to Adam Horton here too.
Yeah, it's one of those where when you're digging around, it's like, are Liverpool interested in Kees Smit? And it's not like, yes, they are. It's kind of a, yeah, because the thing about Kees Smit is that, a lot of clubs in world football, the big ones especially, have looked at him. They're aware of his talent. But the big thing about him is he's progressive. He's an 8. We've got a lot of 8s, haven't we, Trev? In fact, if there's one position we have got, it's like quite a few midfielders that can play 8, in all honesty. So there's that in the mix. Adam Wharton, as you said, we've been told that's the priority signing. So Liverpool have looked at Kees Smit, but he's by no means the priority signing I think people are getting excited about. And when they talk about his biggest talent, and I'm not saying he's a bad player at all, but it's about his progression and his passing, which is also what you're looking at Adam Wharton for, isn't it? Let's be crystal clear on that. So there's levels to it, as they'd say. There's going to be competition. Liverpool would not get anywhere near a bidding war. And this is not being derogatory about a player by any means, but AZ Alkmaar, the Eredivisie, to what Liverpool are looking for in their midfielders, it's a massive jump, isn't it? It's an absolutely huge jump to the top end of the Premier League. So that doesn't mean Liverpool aren't looking at him. That doesn't mean Liverpool don't like this player. But as we're told, this is nowhere near the list of priorities as it stands right now.
2 other names which we have been linked with, like I was saying earlier on, we are constantly linked with big names, and 2 of them, one the most established of talents really in Bradley Barcola, the other the up-and-coming, highly rated and incredibly expensive, it appears, Jan Diamande. Talk to us about both of those in terms of how realistic they are. Again, somebody mentioned there, wasn't this that weren't we supposed to go on spend a whole load of money robbing another highly rated lad who's playing in Germany? We won't mention him at the moment because that'll just set the cat among the pigeons. But again, 100 million plus player like Barcola likely would be, like Diamande we are told is as well. In terms of these big optimistic talents, where we're going to get the money from, I don't know. What's the latest on both of those 2 in particular?
Again, it's one of those where it's a summer one, of course, and it will depend if we're in the Champions League or whereabouts we are, as we said. But because we've liked a lot of wingers, and Liverpool are looking at pacey wingers, so there's zero doubt about that at all. We've seen the names linked, we've seen the names out there. Jan Diomande, of course, he's talked about Liverpool, hasn't he? There's that famous clip. We know Liverpool have watched him, as reported by numerous journos. But just digging around this for the summer, we know Adam Wharton seems to be the top midfield target. That if all things are never equal, as we know, but if they were, Bradley Barcola is the top target. And again, Bradley Barcola, with Moussa Sissoko as his agent, has still got that running down contract at PSG. They haven't been able to do it, so Liverpool are keeping an eye on that. So that seems to be the first pick, but Diomande there as well at the same time. So the only other thing we got with Diomande was, naturally, we had to speak to Red Bull Leipzig, didn't we, about Geertruida and that deal. That was a mention of the conversation, because Red Bull Leipzig are well aware of everyone's and Liverpool's interest especially. But we've got our winger targets, and these two seem to be it right at the top. But again, if you're not in the Champions League, Trev, get your red pen out and mark away your homework, eh?
Yeah, and it's bringing us back, that idea, very much to what our final chat will be. Let's have that chat first in the context of the manager's future. Let's talk a little bit about that, because a few weeks ago it was all anyone could think about. We've had back-to-back wins where we score 10 goals, and people have short memories, and that's just the nature of things. Some people, of course, are rabidly Slot out. Some people are rabidly back the manager, just support the lads, fingers in the ears. And I think most of us are somewhere in between, where we're thinking it really did seem to be getting away from him, and it was getting to be a stage where I think people were right to be concerned that perhaps something had gone badly awry. Then, of course, everyone starts reading into comments and all the rest of it. And it had gotten, I think, Dave, to a stage where no one was comfortable with it. Even, I would imagine, even people who are rabid Slot out people, it was getting tedious. I would like nothing better than for him to make a tremendous case for himself by having a fantastic run into the season and put all this chat to bed. But I'm not sure whether you've heard anything. I was talking to Jan during the week. He'd be tapping up the local journos no more than yourself, and they were all of this opinion that things were actually, I know it's the line, but that he was safe as houses until the end of the season, unless things went really badly. We were hearing like, well, if this result and then this result and then this result goes badly, I think that was driving people insane. So what is the status there as far as you're aware, in terms of how on the edge is that situation for Arne at the moment?
The club seem almost entrenched in this position based on, the reports, as you said. And it is a bit of a line that Liverpool are backing Arne Slot through this. They've got faith in him to, let's say a crisis, but to get through this period. And then, of course, he'll have a year left to go in the summer, and then everything's open for review, because Liverpool always review things, don't they, as they say, at the end of every campaign and do an evaluation. It does seem to be, call it the line, call it the briefing, call it what you want, that unless there is and again, people are going to ask, what is a remarkable downturn in form? People, do you not think we ask the same questions? Do you not think when it's like it was 5 wins in 18, we're like, what is this remarkable downturn? Can someone just give me a number? But you're never going to get it, aren't you? So no one quite knows where the line is, shall we say. But the suggestions are, as long as Liverpool are in that Champions League contention and, it ends up being how it should be, that Arne Slot is safe. So the club are also, and I'll say this, and Eddie might shout at me, but, whatever it may be, the club are very carefully being just behind the scenes talking about, like, we should all get behind the manager, shouldn't we? This negative infighting and toxicity doesn't help anyone. So the club are just, subtly giving out that line, let's put that. And, it is what it is. Now, of course, there is the spectre of Xabi Alonso still looming, but even these stories today, and we've mentioned Xabi Alonso being no shoe-in whatsoever for this Liverpool role. And look at Matt Law there. He is expected to be on the 3-man shortlist for Manchester City. As we said on this show previously, that he had that in his contract with Leverkusen about us, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, and City as well. Those were the clubs that they had that almost agreement for. And I know Matt Law wrote in this that Liverpool, if Arne Slot goes, will be there and he'll be, the favourite they'll want to approach, which I think is probably true. But Matt also mentioned this article about, Bayern are quite happy with Vincent Kompany and they can't see him going. But as we've also said the other week, if the City role does become available, as many people suspect, if that does get offered to Vincent Kompany and he gets any whiff of that, he's going, isn't he? Of course he's going to go to Manchester City. That's where Vincent Kompany is. And of course, that then frees up a role of Bayern Munich, who've also got that connection with Xabi Alonso, haven't they, at the same time? So all this, it just almost seems to become a natural assertion, I'd say, from people. It's fine. Slot's going to get the season and Xabi Alonso's going to take over in the summer, isn't he? People are just running that narrative as in automatic. Listen, it might well happen, but I just think making it the automatic narrative, as many seem to be, I won't get too high on that just now because other clubs are looking at Xabi Alonso. It's not just Liverpool that he'd be interested in as well. What will happen with Arne Slot is still a bit of a question mark. But the expectation is now, whether we like it or not, want it, don't want it, Arne Slot is probably going to be in charge of Liverpool until the end of the season.
Yeah, never ceases to amaze me how people can hear you say one thing and comment something completely different as they're watching you say it. It's remarkable. I do appreciate you people in the chat panel. I will say, if you're going to be a complete prick, you will get banned and you can get out and you can stay gone. And if you're going to laugh at said prick, you'll also go. That's just how it is around here. And if you don't like it, don't be here. There's a limit. You can say, you can slag us off for opinions. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. We're used to it. But do try to listen to our actual opinions before you start slagging us off. That would be good too. I have to say the worst offence in this period where Slot's job has been the focus of attention for me, David, is, and I think you're very much the same, is that I've been bored. I've been bored watching my team, and I think that's the most offensive part of it. And I think we've had this little 2-game spell here where we batter Karabag and then we do some bits in the second half, but that first half hour in the last game was not good either. So it just feels to me like we're building up. I'm trying to build us back up towards our last topic of the show here, which is whether or not it's okay that nothing was done in this window. People still panicking about Jacquet, and I'm looking at Sky and their updates of Liverpool transfers. They've got James McConnell recalled from loan. They've got Owen Beck recalled from Derby on loan. They've got Mortala and Jai for an undisclosed fee, not the other kid for whatever reason that we signed, and that's it. Okay, we'll roll with it till the end of this show and see how we go. But we'll need to start wrapping it up then. We have talked about McConnell. There is one more player that I want to talk about before we finish with our last thing, and that's our highly rated youngster, Josh Abe, who has gotten himself involved with a terrible set of lads, Dave.
Yeah, we got this today on Media Matters, and I won't say too much, but Lewis Xavier Steele owed me a favour, and I made sure he delivered on it this afternoon, or this morning, I should say, which he well and truly did. So, yeah, Josh Abe, that heralded as, the real star of the academy, the real one to watch. And it's no secret at all there that, you look at it, City, Chelsea, Real Madrid, all interested in this kid. They do really think he could be something ultimately special. You're not going to like that name, though. As the tweet says, his agent, Tyler Alexander Arnold of PLG, and brother of a certain right back of ours, or former right back of ours. So, yeah, there's a few, I wouldn't say concerns, because you never absolutely know what can happen with his academy starlets, do you? How many have been billed as the world's next best thing and then ended up at Preston, not being derogatory to Preston or somewhere, lower league. But yeah, there's that. Also, as Lewis revealed, he is a big Arsenal fan and Arsenal are interested. So if they come into the mix, there's that. His agent obviously sets alarm bells ringing for everyone, and I get that completely. But as was also mentioned, Tyler Alexander-Arnold does have other clients in youth groups and other clients with Liverpool as well, like Andy Robertson, although people are going to jump on the Spurs story. So we shouldn't just assume, but there is a real concern about, can they get this kid tied down eventually? And I think, as Lewis also alluded to, don't be surprised that if you see this kid, used in like an FA Cup game or a couple of games, just to say, here's your famous pathway, shall we say. But let's also just hope he maybe doesn't speak too closely to Rio Ungamoa and Trey Ione about how it's going for youth at the club as well. So, yeah, it seems we have got a real talent on our books. Keeping him might be the toughest bit.
Yeah. The more you think about that, the pathway seems to be leading not necessarily to our first team there, which is a frustration for sure. You don't like thinking of Liverpool being anything other than a destination club for everybody, really. That's one of the frustrations that we have as we see this season potentially not go anywhere. Nothing's guaranteed at this point, which is so frustrating. And it's why we've sort of said we'd finish with a conversation about whether it's okay that nothing got done in this window. I think we're going to be on the same page here. Use the word, I think, dereliction of duty. It is certainly neglectful, at least. We are absolutely taking a punt in the way that we have done in previous campaigns. But in those previous campaigns, I don't know if it was ever as much in the balance whether we would get top four. I think it was in the balance whether or not we would challenge for the title. We won't be doing that this season. It's grim that we're battling for top four. I find that really grim. I think, I'd love to think we could go on a run and finish up second, but without reinforcements, that seems like a big ask, Dave. I just, as we wrap up the show and the window itself has long since closed with nothing done, including, it appears, no official word of our summer arrival. Just your final thoughts on the fact that nothing has been done.
Yeah, I was scanning as you were speaking there just to see any embers to bring it to life. And just worth clocking that about, 20 odd minutes ago that Mike McGraw had put this out that Jeremy Jacquet has completed his medical at Liverpool and his centre-back will join. But obviously we're waiting for corroboration of that and more. I think the thing is now, we can't change our tune. They are gambling, aren't they? They are gambling with the future and assuming no, this squad is going to get top four. Now, the key things to say on that is they've gambled on that. They weren't that confident on their gamble travels. They wouldn't have been scrambling for Geertruida and other people on the last day if they were totally confident. But they haven't bought anyone in. It's pretty simple now. If they get top four, top five, Champions League, whatever it ends up being, okay, we were never going to win the league and everything second down is Champions League, isn't it? You either win the league or you don't, or you qualify for Champions League. So if you do it, fine, we put the season to bed and we go again with Champions League. If they do not get Champions League, they should rightly be absolutely battered from pillar to post, this recruitment team, because they knew they were going to have to do something. How many times on different pods have we and others talked about the injury concerns, the need for players at the back? This is not a brand new phenomenon. As we said at the start, they wanted Gase. They knew they were at least one short last summer just gone. And since then, Leone ACL, Connor Bradley out for the season, Joe Gomez repeatedly injured, which is just Joe Gomez, unfortunately, as well. Jeremy Frimpong, 4 muscle injuries now. Just being objective, there were no excuses and it made 0 sense to not bring at least one body in. And yet they've not done it. So to me, it's either now get Champions League qualification and it's okay. They run that gamble. They won that gamble. We move on. But if it doesn't work out, absolutely no one to blame except themselves, and they will deserve every battering they get.
Yeah, I'm going to get some advanced battering in because I don't think it's good enough to be leaving it in the lap of the gods or the lap of our incredibly fragile footballers that we currently have on our books. I just don't think it's okay. I don't think it's acceptable. Like you said quite correctly, if we were going for Geertruida, it absolutely is a statement that that was something that the squad required. So get someone else in if you don't have him. Have a backup plan. We didn't. It's just not good enough on any level. And I find it incredibly frustrating that we are going to march through the rest of the season now with Champions League football as our ambition. That's depressing enough. But the possibility of not getting it, like you said, is absolutely outrageous, mainly because on this show, what we talk about is new recruits. And assuming that the Jacquet thing hasn't gone completely Mark Gahey at the last minute, that's great, but who else will come now if we don't have that Champions League football? That's the reality of it. Football's a "what have you done for me lately" situation, and I find that I'm absolutely furious that nothing's happened. I was absolutely convinced that they just pull out some sort of a stopgap warm body in. Hasn't happened. I don't think it's acceptable, Dave. And if that makes me a whiner or a moaner, well, that's great. Yeah, that's exactly what I am, because I want Liverpool to be successful. And the fact that they haven't done that makes me wonder about their desires for Liverpool, or why would they be so confident that, yeah, this squad will definitely, like, based on what? Based on the samples so far this season? Based on the previous season, the second half of it? Because if that's what you're going on, we won't get Champions League football.
I think,
So
do you know
they're
what?
gambling.
It's so important to say as well, as much as we talk about, because this show is about recruits ultimately and who we want to come in and what might happen in the stories, even the knock-on effects, Trev. Does anyone believe Florian Wirtz signed up to play Europa League football? Does anyone believe Alexander Isak signed up? Do you not think they'll be having question marks? Do you think Dominic Szoboszlai isn't going to have more question marks if we don't get Champions League football as well? And other players at the same time who enter into the twilight, for some of the more senior players as well. It just is a huge gamble. We're just going to have to see how the dice fall on this one. It's not right, but it is what it is.
Yeah, fucking it is what it is. and that's absolutely not okay. It's just what it is not okay. Let's be honest about that. We should wrap it up, and if it's wrapping up on a low note, that's about right, because not only have we not got some lovely pictures of Jeremy Jacquet to show you to confirm that he actually is going to sign for Liverpool Football Club, but we have no one in the short term to help Liverpool Football Club ensure that Jeremy Jacquet will be playing Champions League football next season. That's frustrating. Last word to you, Dave, as we finish out.
Just a bit sad, isn't it? The theme that you didn't bring anyone in January, and you rewind back to the summer and we thought, look at the quality bodies we've got in, look at the aspirations we should have. And now we're at the stage where we are factually in 6th place in the league. And factually, we needed to, as the club, we're trying to do these deals, needed to bring at least one body in, because you're risking Champions League qualification, and you didn't do it. You can say we're being downbeat, but show me the lie to anything we've said tonight.
Yeah, look at City's 2 signings in the window. So it's just it is frustrating for sure. We will wrap it up. It's a low note to end on, but it's an appropriate one for us to end this show on. Last one of the window. No doubt Dave and I will be building up way in advance of the next window. Hopefully we'll be giddy, because we'll be looking forward, on the back of tremendous Liverpool form, to Champions League football and all the wonderful players that we can potentially recruit. I look forward to that. I hope that will be our reality, but it is only a hope. Until then, from myself, from Dave, take care.